Okay, let's do something together right at the start before anything else. I want you to picture three numbers: $300,000, $600,000, $900,000. If I asked you which one belongs to someone who's actually ready to stop working, you'd probably just point at the biggest one. That's the natural guess. It's also the wrong question, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why and how to check your own number instead of guessing. Hi, I'm Clara, and this is Wealth Logic. My whole job here is taking confusing retirement math and turning it into simple numbers you can actually use. No jargon, no assuming you already know the terms. Today, we're doing exactly that with these three amounts. We're not just going to look at what they pay you each month. We're going to figure out, together, what they actually buy you back in time. By the time we're done, you'll be able to run the same simple math on your own number tonight in about 5 minutes. Let's start with the tool almost every financial planner uses as a first rough estimate. It's called the 4% rule. In plain English, that just means this. If you take your total savings and spend about 4% of it a year, adjusted a little for inflation, most people's money reasonably lasts through a typical retirement. It's not a perfect rule, and researchers like Wade Pfau and Michael Fink have spent years studying where it can go wrong, especially if the market drops hard right when you retire. We'll come back to that later, so don't worry, we're not ignoring the risk. But for now, it's a solid starting point, so let's actually do the math together. $300,000 times 4% is $12,000 a year. Let's turn that into a monthly number, since that's how your bills actually show up. 12,000 divided by 12 is $1,000 a month. 600,000 times 4% is $24,000 a year, which is $2,000 a month. 900,000 times 4% is $36,000 a year, which is $3,000 a month. See how that works? You don't need a finance degree for that math. You just need the two numbers and a calculator. Take a breath, because that's the easy part done. And I do mean easy. I promise this video isn't going to throw a wall of formulas at you. Every number from here on out, we're going to do exactly like we just did, out loud, together, one step at a time. The part almost nobody does next is the part that actually matters, and that's what we're doing for the rest of this video. Here's the reframe. Money was never actually the thing you wanted. Time was the thing you wanted. Money is just the tool that buys it. So instead of asking which number is biggest, let's ask a better question at each tier. What does this specific amount actually let you do with your week that you can't do right now? Let's start with $300,000 or $1,000 a month. On its own, $1,000 a month usually isn't stop working completely money for most people. I want to be honest about that, not oversell it to you. But here's what it is money for. If you're still working, $1,000 a month from savings is often enough to replace one part-time income. That could mean going from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week, and your household still being okay. Let's do that math too, so it's not just a feeling. 4 days instead of 5 is 1 extra day a week. Over a year, that's 52 extra days. That's almost 2 extra months of your actual life back. Starting now, not at some future date you keep pushing back. If you're sitting there thinking, well, that's not full retirement, so it doesn't count, I understand that instinct, but I want to gently push back on it. It counts. It's just a different kind of freedom than the one you were picturing. Now let's move to $600,000 or $2,000 a month. This tier is genuinely different, so let's slow down here. Combine $2,000 with an average Social Security check, and for a lot of people, that gets close to fully replacing a modest income. This is often the point where something called coasting becomes realistic. Coasting just means you don't have to keep saving aggressively anymore, because what you've already built, left alone to grow, is on track to be enough by the time you actually stop working. In plain terms, the pressure to keep grinding as hard as possible can start to lift because the math is already mostly done. There's real research behind why this tier matters so much psychologically, not just financially. The shift from, I have to keep saving everything I can, to, I've basically got this, is one of the biggest stress reductions people experience in the years leading up to retirement, according to researchers who study retirement satisfaction and financial anxiety. You don't need the exact study to feel why that's true. Just picture the difference between a Sunday night where you're dreading Monday and a Sunday night where you're not, even though you're doing the same job. That's the $600,000 tier, in plain terms. Now, $900,000 or $3,000 a month. Combined with Social Security, this is where full retirement becomes realistic for a lot of households, especially with a mortgage paid off. This is the number most people picture when they imagine done. But here's the part that genuinely surprises people, and I want to walk through the math slowly because it's a little counterintuitive. Going from $300,000 to $600,000, we said bought you the shift from fully working to coasting. That's a massive change in how your actual week feels. Going from $600,000 to $900,000 is usually the shift from coasting to fully stopped. That's real too, but for a lot of people, the biggest emotional and lifestyle shift already happened at the middle tier. The last $300,000 buys real safety and security, which matters, I'm not dismissing that. It just doesn't always buy as much additional daily freedom as the first jump did. Let's be really clear about what that means, because I don't want you to hear this as, don't save more. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. The relationship between more dollars and more freedom isn't a straight line. It bends. And if nobody ever shows you where it bends, you can end up working extra years past the point where the extra effort was actually changing your day-to-day life, simply because the number kept climbing, and climbing felt like progress. That's not a mistake. It's just what happens when nobody hands you this specific math. Let's actually check where the bend happens, together, one more time, because I think seeing it laid out helps it stick. Going from $300,000 to $600,000, you gained $1,000 a month, and that $1,000 was the difference between fully working and coasting, a genuinely huge shift in how your week feels. Going from $600,000 to $900,000, you also gained $1,000 a month, the exact same dollar amount. But that second $1,000 was the difference between coasting and fully stopped, which for most people is a smaller day-to-day change than the first jump, even though it's the same size jump on paper. Same dollar amount, different sized impact on your actual life. That's the bend in numbers you can see. Let me tell you about someone this happened to. I'm going to change some details here, but the shape of it is real, and I think about it often. His name was Mark, 61 years old, and at dinner one night, his daughter asked him a simple question. Dad, if you retired tomorrow, what would you actually do with your Tuesdays? He didn't have an answer. He'd been telling himself for 3 years that he needed a little more before he could stop, but a little more was never a specific number. It was just a feeling. So he kept working the same 5-day week, the same stressful role, telling himself the number wasn't there yet. Here's something worth saying plainly, because I think it explains why this happens to careful, smart people over and over, and it might be happening to you right now without you noticing. A lot of us avoid checking the real number not because we're lazy, but because we're a little scared of what it might say. If you don't run the math, you get to keep believing someday. The moment you calculate it, you either get good news or you get a number that tells you exactly how far off you are. And that second outcome can feel worse than not knowing at all. So people quietly choose not to know for years and call it not being ready to think about it yet. That's not a flaw in you if it sounds familiar. It's just how most of us are wired. I want you to hear that gently, not as a criticism. 2 weeks after that dinner, Mark finally sat down and did the exact math we just walked through together. He had $640,000 saved. At 4%, that's $2,133 a month. Let's round to $2,130. Add his Social Security estimate, and he was at $3,900 a month combined. His real expenses, the actual number on his bank statement, not the number in his head, were $3,400 a month. He'd already been there for over a year. He just never ran the numbers to find out. Sit with that for a second, because it's not just a sad detail, it's the actual shape of what happens to so many of us. Mark wasn't careless. He was doing the responsible thing, watching his number climb the way every article tells you to. Nobody ever told him that the climb itself matters less once you cross a certain point, that the finish line he thought he still saw ahead of him had actually already passed underneath his feet a year earlier. This lines up with something researchers who study retirement decision-making have found again and again. Most people dramatically underestimate how close they already are simply because nobody ever walks them through their own specific numbers the way we just did. It's not that the math is hard. It's that almost nobody actually sits down and does it, out loud, on purpose, the way you and I just did together. So let's make sure that doesn't happen to you. Here's exactly how to check your own number right now in the next 5 minutes. Step 1. Together. Take your current retirement savings and multiply it by 4%. That's your rough yearly number. Step 2. Divide that by 12 to get a monthly figure. Step 3, add your expected Social Security benefit if you have an estimate. If you don't, you can find one through your online My Social Security account at ssa.gov. Step 4, compare that combined monthly number to your real expenses right now. Not the number you wish it was, the real one. Step 5, gently, because this is the one Mark skipped for 3 years, whatever that gap turns out to be, ask what it actually means for your week. Does it mean you could drop to 4 days? Does it mean you're already covered and just haven't given yourself permission to admit it? Or does it mean you genuinely need more? Specifically, how much more, not just more in general? However this comes out for you, I want to say something plainly because I think it matters more than any of the math we just did. There's no wrong answer here. If the math says you need more, that's not a failure. That's just useful information. And now you have a specific number to work toward instead of a vague feeling. If the math says you're already covered, that's not luck either. That's the result of years of choices you already made, and you're allowed to actually use what you built. Let's do one more example together, quickly, so this feels solid in your hands. Say you've saved $450,000. At 4%, that's $1,500 a month. Add a Social Security estimate of $1,800, and you're at $3,300 combined. If your real expenses are $3,800, you have a $500 gap, and that's specific enough to actually plan around. Maybe a part-time role closes it comfortably. If your real expenses are $2,900, you're already covered. See the difference between that and just saying, I need more money. I need $150,000 more because that's the actual gap, is a plan. I need more, isn't. Before we wrap up, I want to be fair and gentle about something. Health costs in retirement are real and unpredictable. Markets can drop right as you retire, which is part of what Michael Fink's research on sequence of returns risk is about. A bad first few years hurting more than a bad stretch later. Inflation wears down a fixed number over 20 or 30 years. If you're retiring before 65, Medicare eligibility matters too, since health insurance before then is often the biggest gap in the whole plan. None of that disappears just because we've reframed money as time together today. If your honest numbers say you need more, that's real, useful information, and I'm not telling you to ignore it. Money is the tool. Time is the actual goal. Mark did retire about 8 months after that dinner. His first truly empty Tuesday, he spent fixing a fence he'd ignored for 6 years and taking his dog on a walk twice as long as it needed to be, just because neither of them had anywhere else to be. Small things, but real, and no longer borrowed from a future date he kept pushing back. If running this math changed anything for you, tell me your number in the comments, or tell me what it changed about your own Tuesdays. I read every single one. And here's what I want you to notice before you go. Everything we just walked through together assumes you're already close to retirement with a real number in front of you. But the milestones that actually matter start much earlier than most people think, and they're not the ones you hear about at 25. They're closer to 45. In the next video, we're doing the same kind of walkthrough for exactly what matters at that age and why the milestones everyone focuses on are the wrong ones. If you've got 10 or 15 years left, that one's going to matter even more to you than this one did. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and I'll see you there.